back to the Crochet Credos with my friends at yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. Today is going to be the assembly of making a granny square bag that is in this kind of format. You're going to see all kinds of patterns available online where it looks like this. The joining of them is actually the same if it's the same count of just 13 particular granny squares. Regardless of the size of the granny square, if it's 13, this is the magic number in order to do it. My goal today is to show you how to put those together, some tips that I learned because I hadn't done this before, and I realized that when I'm looking at different patterns that are available for free, once I know how to do this, it's awesome. And I'm gonna have a schematic to show you in just a moment. But let me show you the sample and tease you a little bit because I am going to show you some tips that I did learn that I will show you as well. Welcome to my channel, and I'm here to inspire you, give you crochet advice, and help you along with your next project. If you enjoyed this pattern, please give me a thumbs up or even comment so I can gauge your interest. It helps me to know what to film next. I'm not very formal here. So on screen is the Peaches and Cream. It's the popcorn square tote bag. It's what I wanted to learn with this, and I did this by putting it together with a single crochet join. It doesn't matter what the join is, the configuration on how this is put together is still the same. So regardless if you want to sew them together with a whip stitch, you want to slip stitch them together, single crochet together, it's really quite neat. And so that is how it's done. It's just a matter of getting the layout proper. Now I do have some learning opportunities here that I did learn, and so I will be covering that today because you're gonna notice there's a gap space that's happened here because of the way that I started. So I'll show you how I'm gonna resolve that. And what I'm going to do is that I took actual video, and I took still shots of myself putting this thing together to give you an indication on how this is done. So once you have your 13 squares available to you, regardless of the layout of the type of square, it's gonna go together in the same format. Let me take you to the schematic first. In the video description I'm going to have this particular pattern linked in so that you can get the schematic. So if you have a bag that's 13 squares, if you want to invent your own type of square, you know, there's nothing stopping you because the layout is still going to be the same. So what we want to do is that we want to do two configurations like this, and what you're going to do is just lay them out on a table and put them together so it has this particular shape. If you're playing with colors, it's the time to be able to mix and have fun with it. And then I'm going to show you a mistake that I did with this one here, because you need another configuration that looks like this. So when this is done, this will be placed on top to match it. So this center will match to this center, and I'm gonna show you what I learned and a step that you can avoid by doing so. The very bottom one here, that is your very bottom, that's the very most bottom. I wanted it to be the same color as all the joining colors that I did, and so you'll see that on the sample as well. So let me take you, I actually printed a lot of paper out, but I'm gonna show you some real screenshots because it's clear for you, and I'm gonna show you some tips. So the first thing to do is to get your configuration. So like it looked in the schematic, you want to match it on like so. So now's the time to determine your colors. Are they in the right orders that you want to play with, and etc. So you have that. Now what you have to do is start joining them together with just some spare yarn to pull the pieces together so that they'll be completely joined so that it will not fall apart on you, because it's not going to be until you actually single crochet these together. Now you could literally try to, but I think it's better to put them together. So what I did in the next portion of this is that I took a spare piece of yarn and I used a tapestry needle and I put it through the corners of each of the popcorn, and I brought it together and I tied it in a bow tie in order to bring all of those together. So they are now connected, so I can't unconnect them. And this also allows me to know that keeping the right side facing up, so it will not turn upside down on me. So once I connected it all up in this section here, right here, so they were all together. So when there's a connection of 4 there, I put the 4. If there's a connection of 3, I will do that. Okay, so there's a connection of 3 right there. My mistake was that I put this together before putting it on top, and what a mistake this was. My goal was that when this bag comes together, that there would be no flat edges of the same color that will touch each other. I don't mind flat colors that would touch each other on the diagonal, but I did not want the flat. So when I put this on top, I noticed that there was going to be a problem, is that I would have two granny squares of the same color back to back with each other, and that's something that I did not want. I tried rotating this so that it was not going to be matching, but every time I rotated it, it matched another color that was going to be back to back. So what I had to do is take out all the stitch markers of this piece that I had put on top and to realign and to imagine where those are going to go. So I actually created a bit of work for myself, and you know, a glass of wine does go a long way. Once I had that, I just changed the order of everything, and then I positioned that, and the wine was going down pretty nicely, and I was able to get it so that it's going to match. Once I was happy with this, the squares that are on the outside here, they're going to bend and they're going to match here. So these ones get bent that are in half. So this one here is not bent yet. So I'm going to fold this over and I'm going to connect it to here, and then I'm going to connect the two sides. So this will be how it will connect there. They can't show that in the diagram because in the diagram they show that, it's going to be a mess. So what they've done in the diagram is that they had the colors that are the numbers that are indicated. So this square gets folded in half to match, and so does this one, and that one is going to be puzzling right into here and here when you go to do it. Once I had everything puzzled together, I put in the final stitch markers that I needed to hold the entire bag together. So the bag is, no matter how I lift it now, is all going to be together so that I have confidence that it's all going to stay. So when I go to do my joins, is that it's all in the proper order that I want it to be. One thing I did notice is that once I put this together, the tops stay open. So this is open, 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 and open. The rest of it's all closed. So I realized that if I single crochet joined this together, or whip stitch, or whatever you want to do for sewing, if I go in a straight line, I'm going to continue past here and continue along, and as I get down here I'm going to flip the bag over and continue to sew until I get to the top spot of the other side of the bag. So this means that I have joined all of this on the one side but also on the other at the same time. If you were doing this in single crochet, then what you'll want to do is focus on the back loops only so that the single crochet will sink down. So you're going to join and you're just going to work your way through the back loops only, and as it crosses over into another one, you just keep on going. So you don't chain one, you just immediately jump from the corner of one and jump to the next corner of the next. Once I got near to the bottom, I just flipped the bag over and I kept on the same line on the back side of the bag so that I didn't have to change my yarn out. So I just continued and I just went on the back side of the bag. Once I had flipped the bag over, I was over here and I went up, and this is where I stopped. And so this is the end of the line for that. So then what I wanted to do is go back to the bag again and start all over again doing the different lines. Once I had all the lines in one direction all completed, I then started up on the other one side and then did all the connections of this going down the opposite way like this, and as I was connecting them I was removing my stitch markers out because I don't need them to hold them together, because my single crochet is automatically doing that. So what I ended up doing then is that I started off, and you can see that I went in this formation first, and then I joined, and then I went in this formation. And as you cross over an existing one, just like you see, you're just going to jump over top of the stitch of the single, and just jump from one corner here and jump to the other corner, going right over top. Do not chain one. It'll keep it nice and locked in. And because my bottom square was the same color as these joins, it looks like it belongs together. So my goal is to get that all connected up so that we can enjoy this particular bag. And at the end, everything was put together, and now I have some issues that I have to solve because of the stitch work, and that's where we're gonna pick up in today's tutorial. So once everything is connected, we then have an upper trim to worry about, and we also have final things to think about as well, and I will show you that next. So here's one of the issues. You can see that I started here and I went down, and this one here I came back up, so it's actually not connected to each other, and I feel that looks awkward. So all I did is that I left a little bit of a longer strand on here so I can get it through a tapestry needle. So when I go to weave this end in, I want to collect the other one and bring it back together as if it's one, and I'm going to pull it together so it looks like it actually is part of the same unit. Once it's pulled together, I'm just going to favor to the back side of this and then just turn it over, and just weave it into the back of this. You're going to want to have it tie itself into a knot, right? Because you're using this bag, you don't want it to fall apart. So you want it to tie into a knot right near the very beginning of this as you're weaving it in, and then you can weave in your ends right into the stitch work itself. Do not allow that needle to go to the right side of the work. You want it hidden, right? You don't want that bleeding over. So you're going to weave it back and forth a total of 3 times inside of your stitch work. So I thought this was a great opportunity to learn, so I left it as being undone. I had other ones that were open like that. The other thing that I noticed is that here, if you decide that you're not gonna follow the lines, then you're gonna end up with spaces that don't look like they belong together. So it's the same thing that I just showed you. So anytime it doesn't look like it's connecting, just leave a long tail for you to do that, and then just simply connect it so that it looks like it's actually part of one unit. This is not cheating, this is just the reality of the yarn arts. Once you have it connected, I want to go to the inside of the bag at this point. It's at the bottom. Pull through, and as I promised you, I think you need to tie a knot right as you start this. This is cotton yarn, one of the strongest yarns out there. Considering it's made from a plant, it's pretty amazing. So once that's tied into a knot, then you can just weave it in and make sure that that needle never comes to the good side of the work. So just stay within the fibers, and it's better if you can break the fibers apart other than just going in between strands. And you go back and forth 3 times. So putting the squares together is not actually a big deal at all. Just a matter of having some patience and having a good tabletop to do it. So once you have everything ready to go, it's now time to do the upper edge. Most of them have an upper edge so that it looks like it's consistent, and that's what we're gonna focus on next. So let's just start an edge. So the bag is laying flat. So I wanna start in a flat spot here. This will be where the handles will go. And so just start in a flat spot. I'm going to use the same gray color that I used for the trim because it looks good, at least to my point of view. And you want to start it with a slip stitch. It's going to be pretty tight going in. You'll want to use the same size needle or hook that you've been playing with, and start with a standing single crochet. Now just work along the side edges of the squares that you had been working through. And the goal is that when you hit the top of the square where there's a point, you want to place in 3 single crochets there. You don't need to worry about subtracting any stitches when you get to a valley. So I'll be at the top in just a moment. So you don't have to worry about skipping any stitches at all, and just going right in. So there's 2. So you have the 2 double crochets, the popcorn, the chain 1 is the top of the popcorn, and that one will get 3 single crochets. So if there's not a popcorn there, just make sure there's 3 single crochets to turn the corner, and then work your way down to the valley. Once you get to the valley, just immediately connect it together with each other, and then just go up the other side and go up and down your edging just like this. So make sure the right side is facing out. I should have said that already. But you probably assumed it already, and I'll be right back in a moment at the end of this round. So I'm getting all the way back around. I've traced the top edge going up and down the valleys. No big deal. It's been good. And I'm coming down to where I started. So when I get all the way down here, I'm just gonna go right into the last one here, and I want to slip stitch it to the top of the first stitch that I started with. And then I'm going to take in my yarn, and I told you how to weave in back and forth a total of 3 times. So take that strand and weave it in and make sure it knots onto itself, and then get rid of that. And now I'm going to move on to placing of the handles. So let's talk handles. In some of these patterns, it's really hard to see where it's been sewn together. if you're really cheap about attaching, you can end up with a bag where the handle is literally screaming to jump off. So what you have to do is that when you go to apply these, I wanted to use the same color to actually sew it into the handle. So I'm about to do something that is not really shown. So I want to have this sink down at least about 2 inches down. But if I use the gray color and go through this project to have absolute joining, then you're going to see the gray coming through. So what I did is that I kept some of this other yarn that I've been playing with, and I'm using that to match. So I'm gonna match this one with this. I'm going to do this color with the next handle, and etc. And what I want to do is that I want to use that to be able to sew on the handle too. So putting this onto a tapestry needle on the other side, leaving a long enough strand so that you can put that through a tapestry needle, I want you to be able to attach these. Okay, so you may want to just measure them to go down like that, and I'm just going to lean it forward so I can take a peek like that, and I want to go through the handle itself to the good side of the work. But because the color is the same, it's gonna blend. And before I pull it all the way through, I want to go back and through the handle through another piece, a different path. And that loop that I made, I want you to go through it, and when you pull, it's gonna lock onto itself tight. Now you're gonna continue on this, moving up the handle on the back side and going through the work. And because you got the same color, it's gonna be hard to tell. So my goal is just to stay within the same color line itself, so I don't want to interfere with this gray at all in any way, because it doesn't go with that blue. The more you can attach it to the handle itself, the better off that you are. And in behind, I'm using my fingers to know where that handle piece is ending. Coming through. Here's the thing. I find that going around a handle is not enough. So let me just take you to the back and show you what I mean. So I've gone in a complete square around. So what I want to do is that I want to crisscross coming back out. I want to crisscross and go up on an angle in the handle itself. I don't want to interfere with that popcorn too much. And then once I go up on that angle, I'm gonna come across and I'm gonna go down the other angle here. I've learned enough with these bags that if you don't sew it on properly, the handle is gonna scream to jump off. So now it's secured. So you can see this yarn on the back. Big deal. If that's the biggest thing you got to worry about today, you're having a good day, the way I see it. And I want to tie it so it will lock onto itself. And then once you have that done, you can just weave in the ends back and forth inside a total of 3 times. That knot should be holding it permanently in a position. So any kind of tails that you have, you want to do that, and then you're going to move on to your next handle. Remember that you have this one, there's already a slip knot that started that, so you can just take that, it's already knotted, and just weave that in and out as well. Yeah, does it look like sin? Yeah, it does, but the bag will never fall out like the actual handle. People, when they do these kind of bags, they tend to overload the bag so heavy that they just scream. And so the goal is to make sure this handle's the last thing that will break off, and if you had the strand from the handle, you also want to get rid of that as well. It's common sense, right? And so that one you'll have to weave in so it gets stuck as well. So the top points as you looked at the photograph are where the handles are. So it's nice and easy. Usually I would take a tape measure and measure the distance between them, and you know, you take a rough guess. But in this case, because of the angling of the granny, it's pretty obvious, right? So when you go to join the next one, you want to make sure that there's no weird twists or turns to it, so that when you go to join it, you'll be roughly in the same spot, and then you can use a different color and attach. So I will get that done and I'll be back in just a moment. So once your bag handles are on, this little piggy is ready for the market, and really neat. Okay, so on the inside, yes, it does look like you sewed it together, but if somebody's gonna judge you on that, they don't have enough to do in their lives. So anyway, so that's good to go, and this is just a generic layout on one of these bags. So really kind of fun. I'm ready for the market, as I mentioned, and this is going to be another great day right here in the Crochet Crowd. And thank you so much to yarnspirations.com for another great free pattern and the many free patterns that they have available on their website. That's it for now, and this is good to go, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.